The wildfire had passed, but its smoke lingered in my lungs and in my thoughts. I had survived, barely, escaping the inferno that had consumed the edges of our research facility, but my lab, my sanctuary, had been reduced to scorched concrete and charred metal. I wandered through the ashes, my heart pounding with both fear and disbelief. Every sample, every carefully labeled vial of genetically unique plant material, every notebook filled with years of data, all could have been lost. Grant was away at a funding conference, supposedly negotiating a grant that would secure our next phase of research. His absence had always left me uneasy, but now, after everything, I felt an almost compulsive need to check every inch of the lab. I wasn't just protecting my work, I was reclaiming control over my life. I started with a meticulous sweep, examining the main workstation where most of my data was stored. The keyboard was slightly sticky, the monitors smeared with ash, yet the systems had survived remarkably intact. Still, my instincts, honed through years of field research and crisis management, told me to look closer. I crouched down and ran my fingers along the underside of the desk. That's when I felt it, a small, hard rectangle taped underneath. "What is this?" I whispered, carefully peeling it free. It was an external drive, subtle and out of place. My fingers trembled slightly as I held it, the weight in my hand both literal and symbolic. I had learned through experience that intuition was rarely wrong, and this drive screamed that something was very, very wrong. I connected it to my laptop with cautious precision, praying it contained nothing but innocuous backup files. But the folder names that appeared made my stomach drop. Confidential, do not open. My hand hesitated over the first video file. Part of me wanted to step away, to pretend ignorance, but another, louder part demanded the truth. I clicked play. The first clip revealed Grant, the man I had trusted, installing this very drive at my workstation. My heart stuttered. I paused the video, staring at the familiar movements of his hands, the practiced ease of someone performing a deliberate act under the guise of routine work. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a mixture of anger and betrayal threatening to overwhelm me. "Why would you?" I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. The video continued, and I realized that the answer would shatter everything I believed about trust. The first chapter of my rebirth had begun, not just as a survivor of fire, but as someone on the verge of discovering a betrayal that cut deeper than any physical danger. I couldn't just run from this. I had to confront it, and that meant uncovering the full extent of what Grant had done. I stared at the screen, heart hammering, as the video played on. There was Grant, my partner, the person I had trusted implicitly, moving with a precision that was almost chilling. He wasn't just fiddling with an external drive. He was installing it with the care of someone who knew exactly what he was taking and why. And then the next clip appeared, showing him meeting with Dr. Elias, a man I had always considered a shadowy figure in our university's funding circles. Grant's voice was casual, almost conversational, but the content of the discussion made my stomach twist. "We're almost ready," he said, his tone deceptively relaxed. "Once I transfer Sierra's sequences, the foreign entity has exclusive rights. No one will trace it back to us." My hands trembled over the keyboard. My sequences, the fruit of years of research, every painstaking experiment, every failed trial that had led to groundbreaking breakthroughs, were being sold like a commodity, without my knowledge, without my consent. Elias smiled broadly, outlining profit margins and deadlines, oblivious to the fact that the work they were scheming to sell wasn't theirs to give. I felt a surge of anger, so strong it made my fingers clench. But beneath that, there was a cold, calculating clarity. This betrayal wasn't chaotic, it was methodical. Every step, every move had been planned. Grant had infiltrated my own lab, turning the very place I considered safe into a tool for his deception. I paused the video and leaned back, taking a deep breath. Fear still clung to the edges of my mind, a residue of the wildfire and the chaos I had survived. But now it was joined by a determination that was fiercer than ever. I had escaped flames once. I could not allow this theft of my intellectual sanctuary to go unchallenged. "Grant," I whispered to the empty lab, my voice trembling yet steady. "You think you can take everything, but you're wrong." I began cataloging the evidence, making multiple encrypted backups of the drive and the video files. Every timestamp, every movement, every word was saved and duplicated. My hands moved with purpose, my mind sharpening with the clarity of someone reborn. This wasn't just about reclaiming stolen work. It was about protecting the integrity of everything I had built. I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I couldn't handle this alone. The betrayal ran too deep, the stakes were too high, and the consequences of failure were catastrophic. I needed someone with authority, with power and ethics, someone who could help me stop this before it was too late. There was only one person I could think of: Owen Bell. And in that moment, as the video played on in the background, showing the full extent of Grant's duplicity, I realized that my rebirth was no longer just about surviving fire. It was about reclaiming control over my life, my work, and the trust that had been stolen from me. The drive sat on my desk, a silent witness to Grant's betrayal. I stared at it, weighing my options. Panic clawed at the edges of my mind, but I pushed it aside. This wasn't just about emotion, it was about strategy, precision, and reclaiming what was mine. Years of research, painstaking experiments, and irreplaceable genetic sequences were at stake. I couldn't afford a single misstep. I leaned back in my chair, tracing patterns on the desktop, as if the motion could help me untangle the chaos. My instinct screamed that Grant and Elias would act quickly once their plan advanced further. The video had already confirmed their intent to sell my sequences to a foreign entity. That meant I had a very narrow window to stop them. I needed someone with authority, someone who commanded respect and could navigate both legal and academic channels with integrity. My mind immediately went to Owen Bell, the dean. He wasn't just an administrator. He had decades of experience protecting intellectual property and upholding ethical standards. And most importantly, I trusted him completely. Still, I hesitated. Going to Owen meant exposing not only the theft but the vulnerability of my lab. If this fell into the wrong hands, it could escalate quickly. I needed to prepare, to have every piece of evidence neatly organized, every timestamp verified, every detail accounted for. I couldn't leave anything to chance. I began cataloging the files, noting every moment in the video. Grant installing the drive, his meetings with Elias, every casual phrase that revealed their intent. I created multiple encrypted backups, storing copies on secure drives and cloud accounts with layers of protection only I could access. My hands moved quickly, my heart steadying with the rhythm of purpose. This wasn't fear, it was rebirth. I was taking control of a life that had almost been stolen from me. When the preparations were complete, I called Owen. His familiar, reassuring voice answered almost immediately. "Sierra, everything okay?" he asked, concern threading his tone. "I need your help, Owen," I said firmly, though my voice trembled slightly with the weight of the situation. "It's Grant and Dr. Elias. They're trying to steal my research, my sequences, and sell them without my consent. I have proof." There was a pause on the other end of the line, then a low, steadying sigh. "Meet me in my office. Bring everything you have. We'll handle this carefully, strategically. No mistakes, Sierra." Hanging up, I felt a spark of resolve ignite within me. The wildfire had taken my physical sanctuary, but now, this betrayal, was testing my intellectual and emotional boundaries. I would not allow them to win. As I gathered the drive, copies of the files, and my notes, I realized something profound. I had been reborn. The trauma, the betrayal, and the near loss of everything I loved had stripped away any illusions of safety. But it had also given me clarity, determination, and an unwavering commitment to protect what was mine. I walked out of the lab, drive in hand, my mind set on one goal: stopping Grant and Elias, and reclaiming my life, my work, and my peace of mind. Owen's office smelled faintly of old books and polished wood, the kind of grounding scent that always made me feel safe, even when chaos swirled around me. I knocked lightly, and his deep, reassuring voice called, "Come in." I stepped inside, holding the external drive and a neatly stacked folder of copies. Owen rose from behind his desk, his presence calm and commanding, and gestured to the chair across from him. "Sierra," he said, his gaze steady. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath, sitting down and placing the drive on the desk between us. "It's Grant," I said, my voice tight but firm. "He's been planning to sell my proprietary genetic sequences to a foreign entity with the help of Dr. Elias. I have evidence, video footage, and copies of the drive showing every step." Owen's expression shifted subtly, a mix of concern and focus. "Show me," he said quietly, and I connected the drive to his secure terminal. The video played, and I felt a strange mix of emotions: shock, anger, and a strange relief that the truth was finally in someone else's hands. There was Grant, moving with deliberate precision, installing the drive at my workstation. Then came the footage of him meeting Elias, casually discussing deadlines and profit margins while plotting to sell my life's work. The betrayal was stark, undeniable. Owen leaned forward, watching silently, his fingers steepled under his chin. This is systematic," he finally said. "They've thought this through, and the stakes are enormous. But you did the right thing by bringing it to me. We have the authority and resources to stop them and secure your work." Relief washed over me, mingled with a lingering fear. I can't believe he'd do this," I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. "I trusted him. I thought he was committed to the research, to the team." And now, my hands shook as I gestured helplessly to the evidence. "He's selling it all." Owen's hand reached across the desk, resting lightly over mine. "Sierra, you're not alone in this. Your trust hasn't been misplaced, it's just misdirected. You've done everything right. Now we protect what's yours, and we do it properly." His words anchored me, quieting the storm inside my mind. For the first time since the wildfire, since the near destruction of my lab and my sanctuary, I felt a flicker of safety. Owen wasn't just a dean or a mentor. He was someone I could rely on completely, someone who would stand beside me without judgment. "I thank you," I whispered, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I don't know what I'd do without your guidance." Owen smiled softly, a mixture of reassurance and admiration in his eyes. "You're stronger than you realize, Sierra. But you won't have to face this alone. We'll handle Grant and Elias together, and your work will be untouchable." As I sat there, watching him analyze the evidence and plan the next steps, I realized something profound. My rebirth was no longer just about surviving the wildfire or the betrayal. It was about reclaiming control over my life, my work, and the trust one had been forced to question. And with Owen by my side, I felt ready for whatever came next. Owen and I moved with quiet precision, each step deliberate. I had spent years cultivating trust in my lab protocols, but now those skills had to extend to protecting the very evidence that proved Grant and Elias's betrayal. The external drive wasn't just a piece of hardware. It was my lifeline, my proof, and potentially the only thing standing between my work and permanent theft. Owen coordinated with the university's legal and IT teams, his authority cutting through bureaucracy effortlessly. "We need a full chain of custody," he instructed, his voice calm but commanding. "Every copy, every transfer, every access must be logged. Any misstep could jeopardize your case, Sierra." I nodded, taking meticulous notes as I watched our plan unfold. The first step was to make multiple encrypted copies of the drive. I worked alongside Owen, setting up secure servers isolated from the university network. Each backup was verified, hashed, and stored in separate physical locations. My fingers moved swiftly, almost mechanically, but my mind was sharp, fully aware of the stakes. "This is more than just paperwork," I said, glancing at Owen. "If anything goes wrong, my research, my sequences, everything could be lost." Owen gave me a reassuring look. "That's why we're doing this thoroughly. Your work deserves protection, and we won't take any shortcuts. You did the right thing by bringing it to me early." Once the backups were secured, Owen instructed the legal team to draft immediate cease and desist notices, freezing any potential transactions involving my sequences. He also contacted regulatory bodies, ensuring that any attempt to sell or transfer my proprietary data would be intercepted before it could reach foreign entities. As we worked, I couldn't help but notice Owen's quiet attentiveness. He wasn't just guiding the technical and legal steps. He was present, protective, and calm in a way that anchored me. The warmth of his presence was subtle but undeniable, a steadying force amidst the tension. Hours passed, but every procedure brought a strange sense of relief. The drive, once a source of dread, was now fully under our control. Every copy was accounted for, every legal safeguard implemented, and the threat neutralized for the moment. At the end of the day, Owen and I stood in the lab, the hum of secured servers filling the room. "You've done remarkably, Sierra," he said softly, a hint of pride in his tone. "Not just in the work, but in your clarity, your precision, and your courage." I felt a flush of emotion, gratitude, relief, and something deeper. "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted. You made me feel safe when I didn't even know it was possible." Owen's gaze softened. "We're a team, Sierra. And this is just the beginning. We'll see this through together." For the first time since the wildfire, I felt a sense of control returning, not just over my work, but over my life. I had been reborn, and this time, I wasn't letting anything or anyone take that away. The moment had come. After days of carefully securing the evidence and ensuring that every legal and technical safeguard was in place, we were ready to confront Grant and Dr. Elias. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to unfold. Years of trust, work, and dedication had been targeted for theft, and now it was time to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Owen and I arrived at the university legal office, the drive, and all copies in my possession. He led me to a small conference room where the legal team and campus security waited. "Sierra," Owen said quietly, brushing a reassuring hand over my shoulder, "you're in control. We've accounted for every possibility. You'll see your work protected and justice served." I nodded, drawing in a deep breath. My rebirth, the moment after the wildfire, the discovery of the drive, had trained me to face chaos with clarity. I wasn't a frightened victim anymore. I was a curator of truth, both for my research and for myself. The first step was a formal presentation of evidence to the university administration. Grant arrived with Dr. Elias, smug and composed, unaware that the tide had already turned. As the legal team played the video evidence, my sequences backup logs, and timestamps of the drive installation, I felt a chill run down my spine, but it was tempered by a rising sense of vindication. Grant's composure faltered first. I could see it in the slight twitch of his jaw, the way his eyes darted nervously between the screen and Elias. When Owen outlined the full extent of the intellectual theft, the violations of university policy, and the potential criminal consequences, Grant tried to interject, but his words were hollow. Every detail we had meticulously documented left him with no room for argument. Elias, equally smug at first, paled as the evidence was presented, realizing that his plans to profit from my research had been meticulously intercepted. The university's legal team informed them that their access to university facilities was immediately revoked, and criminal investigations were already underway. As the confrontation ended and the culprits were escorted away, a wave of relief washed over me. I sank into a chair, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Owen placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "You did this, Sierra," he said softly. "Your vigilance, your preparation, your courage, it's what stopped them. You've protected your work, your integrity, and yourself." I looked at him, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the university air conditioning. "I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted. "You made me feel safe enough to act, even when everything seemed lost." Owen's smile was quiet but filled with something deeper than pride, something I felt stirring in my own chest. I realized then that my rebirth wasn't just about reclaiming stolen research. It was about reclaiming trust, security, and perhaps even love. For the first time in months, I felt whole again. And I knew that with Owen by my side, there was no challenge we couldn't face together. The days after the exposure of Grant and Elias were a whirlwind, yet in the eye of that storm, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time: clarity. The wildfire had destroyed my physical sanctuary, and Grant's betrayal had threatened my professional and emotional world. But now, with Owen by my side and the threat neutralized, I realized that I had emerged stronger, sharper, and more self-assured than ever. I walked through the lab, now fully secured under university protection, my fingers brushing over the clean, untouched workstations. The smell of polished equipment and sanitized air was strangely comforting. Every vial, every labeled sample, every line of code I had painstakingly logged felt like a testament to my perseverance. I had been reborn, not just surviving the fires or the betrayal, but reclaiming control over my life, my research, and my emotional equilibrium. Owen and I spent long hours together, reviewing the security measures, discussing new research protocols, and reinforcing the university's protections. But in the quiet moments, I began to notice something else: the warmth in his presence, the subtle attentiveness he offered, the ease with which we communicated without words. It was comforting, grounding, and I realized, stirring feelings that had been dormant beneath the stress of survival and betrayal. One evening, as we walked through the campus botanical garden, Owen glanced at me with a small, knowing smile. "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "I've seen you face fire, betrayal, and chaos, and you've done it all with courage and integrity." I smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that surprised even me. I had a lot to learn about who I could trust, I admitted. And now, I know it isn't just about protecting my work. It's about protecting the people who matter and letting the right ones in. Owen reached out and gently took my hand. The warmth of his touch, steady and reassuring, made my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "Sierra, I want to be part of that life with you. To stand by you, not just for your work, but for you." I felt a rush of emotion, relief, gratitude, and something deeper, tender and thrilling. "I want that too," I said softly, letting my fingers intertwine with his. "I trust you, Owen. Completely." As we walked together under the fading light, I realized that the rebirth I had been yearning for was no longer just about survival or revenge. It was about trust, partnership, and the courage to embrace the life and the love that I had fought so hard to protect. For the first time in months, I felt truly whole. And with Owen, I knew I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. The investigation was officially closed, and the university had taken every precaution to ensure that my genetic research remained protected. Grant faced disciplinary action and was suspended pending criminal investigation, while Dr. Elias had no choice but to retreat from the attempted illegal transaction. Standing in my fully restored lab, I felt a calm I hadn't known for months. The fire, the betrayal, the theft, it was all behind me. What remained was mine to protect, mine to nurture, and mine to share ethically. Owen was there, of course. His presence had become both grounding and comforting, a steady anchor through the storm of my life. We walked together along the edge of the greenhouse, the warm sunlight filtering through the glass, reflecting off the rows of carefully preserved specimens. I felt the weight of months lift, replaced with a strange, thrilling freedom. "You've done it, Sierra," Owen said quietly, his eyes meeting mine. "You've taken back control, and you've done it with your integrity intact. No one can touch this work now. You've truly earned it." I smiled, a mixture of gratitude and pride. "We've earned it," I corrected him softly, because I knew I couldn't have navigated the legal and technical maze without him. I couldn't have done this alone. He reached for my hand, and this time there was no hesitancy, no subtle tension, only connection. "I want to be with you, Sierra. Not just here, not just in moments like this. I want to be part of your life, fully moving forward." My heart leapt, and I felt warmth blossom in my chest. "I want that too," I said, voice steady, letting my hand fit into his perfectly. "I trust you, Owen." Fully. We stood in silence for a moment, the greenhouse around us alive with the hum of life and growth, symbolic of the renewal I had experienced. The rebirth that had begun with escaping fire, confronting betrayal, and reclaiming my work had led me here, to safety, control, and love. Owen leaned closer, his forehead resting lightly against mine. We've got a future, Sierra. Together. With trust, integrity, and protection for what we care about most. I closed my eyes, letting the reality of his words sink in. The fear, the betrayal, and the fire were memories now, powerful teachers that had forged a new version of me, strong, resilient, and open to love. When he kissed me, gentle yet firm, I felt everything align. My work, my life, and my heart. I had been reborn, not just as a survivor, but as someone who could protect her world, trust again, and love freely. As we pulled back slightly, I whispered, "I'm ready for everything." Owen smiled, entwining our fingers, and in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning. My life was secured, my work protected, and my heart finally home.